Section 134 Vaisampayana said, thus worshipped by Bhisma, Drona, that first of men, endued with great energy, took up his quarters in the abode of the Kurus and continued to live there, receiving their adorations. After he had rested a while, Bhishma, taking with him his grandsons, the Kaurava princes, gave them unto him, his pupils, making at the same time many valuable presents. And the mighty one Bhishma also joyfully gave unto the son of Bharadwaja a house that was tidy and neat, and well filled with paddy and every kind of wealth. And that first of bowmen, Drona, thereupon joyfully accepted the Kauravas, viz. The sons of Pandu and Dhritarashtra, as his pupils. And having accepted them all as his pupils, one day Drona called them apart, and making them touch his feet, told them with a swelling heart, I have in my heart a particular purpose. Promise me truly, ye sinless ones, that when ye have become skilled in arms, ye will accomplish it. Vaisampayana continued. Hearing these words, the Kuru princess remained silent. But Arjuna, O king, vowed to accomplish it, whatever it was. Drona then cheerfully clasped Arjuna to his bosom and took the scent of his head repeatedly, shedding tears of joy all the while. Then Drona, endued with great prowess, taught the sons of Pandu the use of many weapons, both celestial and human. And O bull of the Bharataris, many other princes also flocked to that best of the Brahmanas for instruction in arms, the Rishnis and the Andakas, and princes from various lands, and the adopted son of Radha, of the Suta caste, Karna, all became pupils of Drona. But of them all, the Suta child Karna, from jealousy, frequently defied Arjuna, and supported by Duryodhana, used to disregard the Pandavas. Arjuna, however, from devotion to the science of arms, always stayed by the side of his preceptor, and in skill, strength of arms, and perseverance, excelled all his class fellows. Indeed, although the instruction the preceptor gave was the same in the case of all, yet in lightness and skill Arjuna became the foremost of all his fellow pupils, and Drona was convinced that none of his pupils would at any time be able to equal to that son of Indra. Thus Drona continued giving lessons to the princes in the science of weapons, and while he gave unto every one of his pupils a narrow-mouthed vessel for fetching water, in order that much time may be spent in filling them, he gave unto his own Ashwatthama a broad-mouthed vessel, so that filling it quickly he might return soon enough. And in the intervals so gained, Drona used to instruct his own son in several superior methods of using weapons. Jishnu, Arjuna, came to know of this, and thereupon filling his arrow-mouthed vessel with water by means of the Varuna weapon, he used to come unto his preceptor at the same time with his preceptor's son. And accordingly the intelligent son of Pritha, that foremost of all men possessing a knowledge of weapons, had no inferiority to his preceptor's son in respect of excellence. Arjuna's devotion to the service of his preceptor, as also to arms, was very great, and he soon became the favorite of his preceptor. And Drona, beholding his pupil's devotion to arms, summoned the cook and told him in secret, never give Arjuna his food in the dark, nor tell him that I have told thee this. A few days after, however, when Arjuna was taking his food, a wind arose, and thereupon the lamp that had been burning went out. But Arjuna, endued with energy, continued eating in the dark, his hand from habit going to his mouth. His attention being thus called to the force of habit, the strong-armed son of Pandu set his heart upon practicing with his bow in the night. And O Bharata, Drona, hearing the twang of his bowstring in the night, came to him and clasping him said, Truly do I tell thee that I shall do that unto thee by which there shall not be a bowman equal to thee in this world. Vaisampayana continued. Thereafter, Drona began to teach Arjuna the art of fighting on horseback, on the back of elephants, on car, and on the ground. And the mighty Drona also instructed Arjuna in fighting with the mace, the sword, the lance, the spear, and the dart. And he also instructed him in using many weapons and fighting with many men at the same time. Hearing reports of his skill, kings and princes, desirous of learning the science of arms, flocked to Drona by thousands. Amongst those that came there, O monarch, was a prince named Ekalavya, who was the son of Hiranyadhanus, king of Nishadas, the lowest of the mixed orders. Drona, however cognizant of all rules of morality, accepted not the prince as his pupil in archery, seeing that he was a Nishada, who might in time excel all his high-born pupils. But, O oppressor of all enemies, the Nishada prince, touching Drona's feet with bent head, wended into the forest, and there he made a clay image of Drona and began to worship it respectfully, as if it was his real preceptor, and practiced weapons before it with the most rigid regularity, in consequence of his exceptional reverence for his preceptor and his devotion to his purpose. All the three processes of fixing arrows on the bowstring, aiming and letting off became very easy for him. And one day, O grinder of force, the Kuru and the Pandava princes, with the Drona's leave, set out in their cars on a hunting excursion. A servant, O king, followed the party at leisure, with the usual implements and a dog. Having come to the woods, they wandered about, intent on the purpose they had in view. Meanwhile, the dog also, in wandering alone in the woods, came upon the Nishada princess, Ekalavya, and beholding the Nishada of dark hue of body besmeared with filth, dressed in black and bearing mated locks on head, the dog began to bark aloud. Thereupon the Nishada prince, desirous of exhibiting his lightness of hand, sent 7 arrows into its mouth before it could shut it. The dog, thus pierced with 7 arrows, came back to the Pandavas. Those heroes who beheld that sight were filled with wonder and, ashamed of their own skill, began to praise the lightness of hand and precision of aim by auricular precision exhibited by the unknown archer, and they thereupon began to seek in those woods for the unknown dweller therein that had shown such skill. And O king, the Pandavas soon found out the object of their search, ceaselessly discharging arrows from the bow. And beholding that man of grim visage, who was totally a stranger to them, they asked, O who art thou and whose son? Thus questioning, the man replied, Ye heroes, I am the son of Hiranyadhanus, king of the Nishadas. Know me also for a pupil of Drona, laboring for the mastery of the art of arms. Vaisampayana continued. The Pandavas then, having made themselves acquainted with everything connected with him, returned to the city, and going on to Drona, told him of that wonderful feat of archery which they had witnessed in the woods. Arjuna, in particular, thinking all the while, O King Ekalavya, saw Drona in private, and relying upon his preceptor's affection for him, said, Thou hadst lovingly told me, clasping me to thy bosom, that no pupil of thine should be equal to me. Why then is there a pupil of thine, the mighty son of the Nishada king, superior to me? Vaisampayana continued. On hearing these words, Drona reflected for a moment, and resolving upon the course of action he should follow, took Arjuna with him and went on to the Nishada prince. And he beheld Ekalavya with the body besmeared with filth, matted locks on head, clad in rags, bearing a bow in hand, and ceaselessly shooting arrows therefrom. And when Ekalavya saw Drona approaching towards him, he went a few steps forward and touched his feet and prostrated himself on the ground. And the son of the Nishada king, worshipping Drona, duly represented himself as his pupil, and clasping his hands in reverence, stood before him, awaiting his commands. Then Drona, O king, addressed Ekalavya, saying, If, O hero, thou art really my pupil, give me then my fees. On hearing these words, Ekalavya was very much gratified, and said in reply, O illustrious preceptor, what shall I give? Command me, for there is nothing, O foremost of all persons, conversant with the Vedas, that I may not give unto my preceptor. Drona answered, O Ekalavya, if thou art really intent on making me a gift, I should like then to have the thumb of thy right hand. Vaisampayana continued. Hearing these cruel words of Drona, who had asked of him his thumb as tuition fees, Ekalavya, ever devoted to truth and desirous also of keeping his promise, with a cheerful face and an unafflicted heart, cut off without ado his thumb, and gave it down to Drona. After this, when the Nishada prince began once more to shoot with the help of his remaining fingers, he found, O king, that he had lost his former lightness of hand, and at this Arjuna became happy, the fever of jealousy having left him. Two of Drona's pupils became very much accomplished in the use of mace. These were Duryodhana and Bhima, who were, however, always jealous of each other. Ashwatthama excelled everyone in the mysteries of the science of arms. The twins, Nakula and Sahadeva, excelled everybody in handling the sword. Yudhishthira surpassed everybody as a car warrior. But Arjuna, however, outdistanced everyone in every respect, in intelligence, resourcefulness, strength and perseverance. Accomplished in all weapons, Arjuna became the foremost of even the foremost of car warriors, and his fame spread all over the earth to the verge of the sea. And although the instruction was the same, the mighty Arjuna excelled all the princes in lightness of hand, indeed in weapons as in devotion to his preceptor. He became the foremost of them all, and amongst all the princes, Arjuna alone became an Atirata, a car warrior capable of fighting at one time with 60,000 foes. And the wicked sons of Dhritarashtra, beholding Bhimasena, endued with great strength, and Arjuna, accomplished in all arms, became very jealous of them. O bull among men, one day Drona, desirous of testing the comparative excellence of all his pupils in the use of arms, collected them all together after their education had been completed, and before assembling them together, he had caused an artificial bird as the would-be aim to be placed on the top of a neighboring tree. And when they were all together, Drona said unto them, take up your bows quickly, and stand here aiming at the bird on the tree, with arrows fixed on your bowstrings. Shoot and cut off the bird's head as soon as I give the order. I shall give each of you a turn, one by one, my children. Vaisampayana continued. Then Drona, that foremost of all Angira's sons, first addressed Yudhishthira, saying, O irrepressible one, aim with thy arrow, and shoot as soon as I give the order. Yudhishthira took up the bow first, as desired, O king, by his preceptor, and stood aiming at the bird. But O bull of Bharata's race, Drona, in an instant addressing the Kuru prince, standing with the bow in hand, said, Behold, O prince, that bird on the top of the tree. Yudhishthira replied unto his preceptor, saying, I do. But the instant after Drona again asked him, What dost thou see now, O prince? Seest thou the tree, myself, or thy brothers? Yudhishthira answered, I see the tree myself, my brothers, and the bird. Drona repeated his question, but was answered as often in the same words. Drona then vexed with Yudhishthira, reproachingly told him, Stand thou apart, it is not for thee to strike the aim. Then Drona repeated the experiment with Duryodhana and the three sons of Dhritarashtra, one after another, as also with his other pupils, Bhima and the rest, including the princes that had come on to him from other lands. But the answer in every case was the same as Yudhishthira. This we behold the tree, thyself, our fellow pupils, and the bird, and reproached by their preceptor. They were all ordered one after another to stand apart. Thus ends the 134th section in the Sambhava Parva of the Adi Parva.